Elon Musk's entire empire, the rockets, the robots, the brain chips, the AI, is just one single bet, and it has nothing to do with money. Most people look at the lawsuits, the tweets, and the multi-billion-dollar companies and see chaos or ego. They're missing the actual blueprint. Every move he's made for the last 20 years is part of one highly specific engineering plan. It isn't about electric cars. It isn't about Mars tourism. It isn't about social media or building the most powerful AI. It's built to solve a single threat, the extinction of human consciousness. Once you see how all 6 companies are designed to protect it, the entire picture changes. Musk has said repeatedly, in interviews, in speeches, and public statements going back more than a decade, that the core goal is to expand the scope and timescale of consciousness, to make sure it does not go extinct, to ensure it continues to understand the universe. Everything else is downstream of that single objective. SpaceX is the insurance policy. If consciousness only exists on Earth, one fragile planet in one solar system, then a single catastrophic event ends the entire experiment. Asteroid, engineered pathogen, nuclear exchange, something we haven't modeled yet. Any of them. Game over. The public hears Mars colony. The actual statement is, consciousness should not be a single planet species. Multiplanetary life is not primarily about adventure. It is about removing the single point of failure. Most explanations of Musk stop here. They see SpaceX and call it the Mars plan and move on. But this is only the first layer, and the second layer is where it gets genuinely interesting. Even if you solve the multiplanetary problem, even if humanity exists on Earth and Mars and eventually beyond, you still have a bigger issue. Biological brains are slow. AI is not. The processing speed of digital intelligence is already orders of magnitude beyond what a human brain can produce. That gap is widening every year, not every decade, every year. Musk's conclusion from this is specific and uncomfortable. If humans cannot increase the bandwidth between their minds and digital systems, if they cannot think alongside AI rather than simply instruct it, then biological consciousness becomes irrelevant, not in 100 years, potentially in decades. The medical applications of Neuralink are real. Helping paralyzed patients communicate is real and documented and genuinely important. But that is the near-term justification, not the long-term logic. The long-term logic is defensive. Keep the human mind in the game before it loses the game by default. Neuralink is not primarily a medical company. It is a species-level systems intervention. The brain chip that helps a paralyzed patient move a cursor today is the proof of concept for a technology that may determine whether biological consciousness remains relevant in a world of machine intelligence. Most people covering Neuralink are reporting on the medical device. Almost nobody is explaining what the medical device is actually a prototype for. And here is where the third reveal changes how you read something you thought you already understood. The OpenAI lawsuit is covered as a business dispute, a personal conflict, a billionaire suing his former colleagues over a broken promise. Through the consciousness frame, it looks completely different. If your core mission is expanding and preserving consciousness, and you believe the most powerful AI ever built must be oriented toward truth rather than toward profit, control, or ideological constraint, then a closed, commercially driven AI laboratory is not a neutral competitor. It is a strategic threat to the entire mission. This does not make every claim in the lawsuit correct. Courts exist precisely to evaluate those claims. And as we covered in an earlier episode, Musk lost that case in under 2 hours, but it does explain the intensity. It explains why he didn't simply compete and ignore them. It explains why the conflict felt existential to him in a way it may not have felt to others. Same logic applies to X. Most coverage of Musk's emphasis on free speech treats it as politics. Through this frame, it looks like infrastructure. If the systems that shape what people can say and see are optimized for something other than truth, if collective information flow is distorted at the platform level, then collective intelligence degrades. Conscious beings making decisions on corrupted information is a systems failure, not a political debate. He has said versions of this in different words for years. The pattern is consistent. Every company, every conflict, every public fight, all of it oriented around the same engineering problem. Here is the part almost nobody puts together. Musk does not talk about these companies as a portfolio. He talks about them as pressure points on the same civilizational problem. Consciousness is trapped on one fragile planet. It is running on biological hardware that is about to be outpaced by digital intelligence. It is operating inside information systems that are not optimized for truth. SpaceX removes the single-planet failure point. Tesla ensures the energy foundation that keeps civilization viable long enough to do anything else. Neuralink keeps biological minds relevant alongside machine intelligence. XAI builds the truth-seeking intelligence rather than the capability-maximizing one. X preserves the information flow that collective intelligence depends on. And the boring company, the one most people have already dismissed as a tunnel novelty, solves the infrastructure problem that makes long-term survival on another planet physically possible. Underground habitats, radiation protection, the construction system that everything else depends on once you actually get there. 6 pressure points, 1 problem. And here's the detail that makes the timeline make sense. Musk keeps referencing the next few decades as a critical window, not centuries, decades. That is not arbitrary urgency. It reflects his assessment that the window during which humans can still shape the trajectory of artificial intelligence, still make decisions about what it is for and who it serves, is narrow and closing. Miss that window and the decisions get made by the systems themselves. Whether you find that assessment credible or alarmist, it is the load-bearing belief underneath every major decision he has made for 20 years. You can disagree with the feasibility. You can disagree with the execution. You can argue that the communication is chaotic and the timelines are unreliable. What is harder to argue is that there is no coherent thread. The thread has been visible for a long time. Most coverage just isn't optimized to see it. One planet, one species, one narrow window. That is the problem Musk has decided to spend his life and his fortune working on. Whether the systems being built are actually capable of carrying that weight, that part is still being tested, in real time, in factories and courtrooms and orbit and operating rooms. Watch which pieces deliver. Watch which ones fall short. Because the next 5 years will tell you more about whether this plan is visionary or impossible than the next 50 years of analysis ever could. This is Gated. Subscribe. The next door opens soon.